Hi, everybody. My name is Tom Woodford, and I am Hilliard City Schools College Counselor. Not to scare you, but your kids as juniors are less than 10 months away from filling out all of their college applications. I think it's important to understand that, not to scare anybody, but it is important to understand that. So as we work through this meeting, and if you have questions, feel free to write them down. And you are welcome to send me those, or we can also schedule a time so we can meet. So in about 10 months, your kids are ready for this process. So let's talk about testing. A lot of schools are test optional right now. We are going to talk more in about 5 minutes about that. But all schools in the country will use ACT as well as the SAT. The ACT is a test that is offered 7 times a year. Typically, kids schedule or start to take these during their high school junior year. We will talk more about that plan too, but these are the dates for when kids can, one, sign up, as well as all of the deadlines for the actual testing dates for the ACT, as well as the SAT. The SAT is also offered 7 times a year. Here are all of the dates, as well as the website, that if you would like to sign your child up, feel free to actually do that. Again, every school in the US will use both ACT and the SAT. How are they the same and how are they different? The ACT is made up of 4 sections: English, math, reading, and science. And the SAT is made up of a critical reading and a math section. The SAT is out of 1,600 points, and the ACT is out of 36 points. Today happens to be the 13th of October. Hopefully your kids as juniors signed up to take this test. This is the test that's used for the National Merit Scholarships, okay? All of your kids took the PSAT 10 in the spring of last year, okay? And we will be using a lot of those outcomes to help the kids get ready for the SAT this spring. Speaking of that, all of your kids will take the SAT this spring. It is free. The state of Ohio is going to pay for it. It is not going to include the writing section. Very few schools need that now. And as I said, that we're going to be using the data from the PSAT 10. We will be offering an SAT prep session in the month of January at each of the 3 high schools. This is free. This will be open to all of our juniors. And that is going to be scheduled around, set up. So we're going to spend an hour working on test prep strategies. And then the next 3 hours is going to be based on what is actually on that test. Again, this is free. Your kids will not have to pay for this. It'll be done during the school day to hopefully get them ready for the SAT this spring. So as we look at ACT as well as SAT, it's important that we create a plan. And as we make a plan, it's important that we look backwards. And so November 1st is a good date. A lot of schools like OSU, as well as Miami, have this date as the early action in their scholarship deadline, which means the last test that's guaranteed that the scores are going to get there in time. For the ACT, it is the September test. For the SAT, it is the August test. Knowing that, we want to create a plan and work backwards from those dates. I always get asked about when should kids start to take these tests. And I always ask, well, what math are they in? And I use the course Algebra 2 as the gauge. And so if you have kids that are in pre-calculus or calc right now, there is not, there's not anything in those classes that are going to be on these tests. On the ACT, there's 60 math questions. Between 9 and 12 of them are Algebra 2 type, and 4 of them are trig. All of that students get inside of Algebra 2. And so I worry about those kids that are in calculus because it's been a couple years since they've had geometry, which there is a lot of geometry on both of these tests. So if your child is in Algebra 2 now, I would wait to spring to take their first test, take it again in the summertime, and then once again in the fall. Test optional. Test optional has been a thing that has been going on for some time. It's actually been a movement prior to COVID. So if you look at schools like the University of Chicago, they have been test optional for 4 years now. A school like Wake Forest, they've been that way for 15 years. And so test optional means kids can apply to college and they do not have to send in any ACT or SAT scores. If you want to get a full list of all of the schools that are test optional, you can go to fairtest.org. Now, currently, there are a lot of schools, like schools in the state of Ohio, that have gone test optional just due to COVID. And so a school like Ohio State, they have said they were test optional last year. They're going to be test optional this school year. But for your child's senior year, they have not made any kind of choices yet on if they will be test optional. As soon as I hear it, which will be sometime in the spring, I will make sure I get all of that out to you. Many colleges like OU have said they are going to move to being test optional and they're going to stay that way forever. And then there are some schools that have moved to test blind. All of the state schools in the state of California are actually test blind, which means they are not allowed to use ACT or SAT in any of the application processes. That is written in a statute. It is law. So those schools cannot use those scores. So as we plan ahead, I will be hosting a meeting in the month of April. It's going to focus on the college application process. We're going to talk about some of that now, but we will focus on what that process is going to be this spring. So your kids know exactly what they have to do starting on August 1st. They should also be focusing this school year on making sure that they're doing well in school. If maybe they didn't start high school very well, as long as they're on an uptick, that's going to look very strong. And then at the same time, if they have done well so far, the last thing we want to do is to see a dip in the high school grades and things like that. When kids get their PSAT scores back, it's important that they not only look at the scores, but they actually go online and look at their test, and they can see their actual test. They can look and see the various questions that they missed, and they can get some feedback on what they might not have understood. It's also important too, that this junior year, that kids, if they have not started, they need to begin to volunteer. And they need to volunteer at a place for a while. instead of just doing a hodgepodge of various type of things and gathering service hours, it's important that colleges see students volunteer at a place and stay there over a long period of time. If your kids are interested in taking college courses next year as a senior, we will have a meeting about College Credit Plus on December 1st at Bradley at 6:30 p.m. And so senior year is an opportunity for kids to have a strong schedule with their high school courses, AP courses, as well as even taking a few college courses as well. I advise students, if they schedule to take an AP class, they should follow through and take the AP test. Kids do not earn any college credits from taking any type of AP class or the AP test. The college that your child goes to, they may give them credit for their own courses based on the scores from the AP test. That's how students can earn some type of college credit from taking those type of classes. Schedule, as we have already talked about, schedule the ACT as well as the SAT and create a plan. Whichever test they choose to take, whichever test fits them best, I encourage students to take each test at least once, and then the test that fits them best, take it 2 more times. That's why you want to create that plan, and you want to take that test more than once. We're going to talk about super scoring, and that is the reason you want to take those tests more than once. We will talk about that here in just a few minutes. Spring break. Spring break is a great opportunity to get out of town, take a mental break, but it's also a great opportunity to go and visit some college courses, some college campuses. Sorry about that. Take advantage of that time where students can be on campus. You can see and feel how things feel as students move from class to class, what's going on there on campus, and then you have a better opportunity to actually meet with folks who are inside of specific majors. And again, they should take their AP tests. So terms, through this college process, it has its own language, its own jargon. So it's important to understand when we hear these terms, we know what they mean. This first term, early decision. There's only a few schools all over the country that have this ED option. And understand what this is. This is binding on the student. If a student applies ED, they are telling that college that you are my first choice. And if I get accepted, I am coming. It is binding on the school's part as well as the student's part. More colleges like OSU use early action. Early action is an opportunity for students to fill out all of their applications and get them in by the 1st of November. And then they find out sooner, but it's not binding to the student. Students can apply to as many schools as they want. EA. Restricted early action, there's only 12 to 15 colleges that have this as an option. Schools like Stanford, the Ivy Leagues, schools like that. And as what you're saying is, you are my first choice of those 12 to 15 colleges. It is still non-binding, but you are letting them know that your school is your first choice. When colleges have these dates that show up fairly early, they also have a regular deadline as well. Ohio State's regular deadline is February 1st. A lot of students, a lot of schools offer that. And the reason for that is students, if you want to apply to Ohio State and you want to get any kind of merit scholarships, you have to apply by the 1st of November. You can still apply after that and get into Ohio State. You just cannot get their merit scholarships. So super scoring. Super scoring is when students take the ACT or the SAT more than once. And if a college is going to super score, then they will take your highest reading from one test, your highest science from one, your highest English, and your highest math. And they will give you a new score. So if you take the ACT 3 times and score a 27, Ohio State's going to say that you have a 27. But a school like Miami of Ohio might say they have a 29 or a 30 because they will super score, which is very, very helpful. The common application is probably going to be the application that your kids are going to use next fall. Sorry about this, but there's over 900 colleges and over 36 schools in the state of Ohio that use this one application. It goes live on August 1st. I will have Common App camps to help kids through this in the month of August. But this is going to be the application that kids are going to use, and it can be found at commonapp.org. Inside of that application, there's a thing called a member page, and that's where students select specific colleges that use this one application. And then they have their own questions specific to themselves inside of this member page. And that's where students will submit their applications to specific colleges as well. Holistic review. We're going to finish this presentation with this, but it's holistic review is how colleges review a student's application. It's not just based on their ACT score or their SAT score or their high school GPA. It is going to take everything that is on their application, and we are going to talk more soon. So there's multiple applications out there. As I said, the common application, over 900 colleges use this. Most of your kids are going to use this one application. Some colleges have their own application. So if a school would like to apply to ODU right here in town, this is the application that they use. Or if kids want to apply to C-State, they have their own application. There's a third application called the Universal app. There's only 50 colleges that use this. All 50 of them also use the common application. So I would stick with that. And then there's a fourth application. It's called the Coalition app. There were a lot of problems with this application last year. Every school that uses this application also uses the Common App. So whenever in doubt and Common App is an option, that's what they would like to use. If a school like Ohio University has their own application as well as the Common App, students only have to fill out one. They do not need to fill out more than one application to the same college. They only want to see one application from each student. Visits. So scheduling a visit. I think that this is very important. There's some days that are coming up when we are not in school. Students are. So I think those are great days to go. The way that you schedule them is you go on a school's website, you click on the admissions tab, and there will be a drop-down link there so students can schedule a visit. Calendar is going to pop up. Students choose a day and a time that is best going to fit them. Parents, I encourage you to go with your son or daughter. It's a great opportunity to have conversations, especially after the visit, about what they liked and what they did not like. At the same time, we have over 100 colleges that are coming to Hilliard City Schools to see your kids. So it's important that they go into their Naviance account, and in there, they look under what's new, and it will tell them all of the colleges that are coming to their high school to see them. They can register with them at that point too. Financial aid. So parents, you cannot begin to fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, until October 1st of your child's senior year. Every year I have parents fill it out over the summer and they fill out the wrong form. The form you guys are going to fill out, because your kids are going to graduate in the spring of 2023. So they will start high school, they will start college in the fall of 2023. So you will fill out the 23-24 FAFSA, and you will use your tax returns from 2021. Okay, we will help you through this. We will offer a financial aid type of meeting in September of next fall. So you guys are ready to go to fill out that form starting on the 1st of October. Financial aid terms. So it's important, and I see that I have a typo here, that you go to studentaid.gov or FAFSA.gov. Do not go to a .com. Do not go to a .org. And remember, it is the free application for federal student aid. There should be no fees here. After you as parents fill out this form, a week or so later, you will get an email back from FAFSA that will let you know what your EFC is. Your EFC is AKA what the federal government says you can afford for college. You're not going to like it. You're not going to agree with it, but it is where that is what is used at the colleges. So when students get accepted, then that's what's used to create the financial aid package. If parents, you do not agree with that, then that's when you have conversations with the financial aid office at each of those colleges, because they also have all of that information there too, so they can have some type of dialogue. Many colleges, especially the private schools or even schools in the South or out West, they have a second form that they use to help figure out a financial aid package. And that's called the CSS profile. And this is found on the College Board website. So if you see that a college needs this, please don't skip over it. You're going to need to fill out the CSS profile. The FAFSA, you can finish in about 45 minutes. The CSS profile is going to dive into your family assets much deeper. It's going to take a few days. So if you are sitting in your chair now wondering, I want to know what my EFC is right now, you can get a good idea by going to FAFSAforecaster.gov. You can put in some basic information and it'll give you feedback on an idea of what your EFC might be. So probably 7 or 8 years ago, the federal government said to all of these colleges, we need to give parents a better idea of what the true cost of going to each school is. So by law, every school has to have a net price calculator on their website. It has to be within 2 clicks of the homepage. And so you can put in some basic information and it's going to give you an estimate of what the cost is going to be at that school. As students go on visits and parents, I think it's important that we ask questions. And it's important that you get a better idea of how things actually work at that school, so you are not surprised. One is, I would ask too, what is your retention rate? When we look at a school like OSU, 94% of the students that go there as a freshman come back as a sophomore. That is outstanding. If they tell you that their rate is around 50%, then you might want to follow that with, why is that? Why are kids not staying here for 2 years, 3 years, or even 4 years? You want to ask, will you be test optional next year? How did you handle COVID? Have you been face-to-face? Have you been online? Have you been in a hybrid setting? I would even ask too, is your college mandating the vaccine? You want to know what the rules are there. Do you have study abroad options? Do you have internships? Do you have co-ops? Do you have those? Is there a special office where I can go and find all of that information? Do you offer federal work study? I wouldn't get too caught up on how schools rank. I would like to know, how do they rate? How do they rate in terms of kids being employed within 6 months after they finish school? How do they rate in terms of kids having various opportunities to study abroad? Or how do they rate for kids having internships as well as co-ops? Who's actually teaching all of these college classes? Is it the prof? Is it the guy that wrote the book? Is it a TA? Some of us might not want to pay for these courses that our child's being taught by a TA. So those are questions that you might want to ask. Do you have a scholarship deadline? Do you have separate scholarships that have their own applications, that have their own deadlines as well? And if they do, where can I find them? Okay. And if they do, can I get a list of all of those deadlines? Social media. Parents, I know that you've talked to your students over and over and over again, but I do think it's important that there was a study that over half of the colleges out there will use social media as part of the holistic review. Your child's going to need to use an email address to create their Common App account. They're going to need to have an email address to go back and forth with college admissions reps and things like that. If they created an email in 4th grade, it probably sounds like it. So if they need to create a new one, they should do that. So holistic review, we had spoken about this prior. What is it? Holistic review is when colleges look at everything. They're going to look at a student's high school GPA. They're going to look at their scores. They're going to look at their scores compared to they're going to look at their courses compared to what courses that we offer. When we send a high school transcript to a college, we also send a high school profile, which lists all of our AP courses, honors courses, and things like that. Many colleges will ask for grades during the middle of the year. So parents, when kids tell you my senior year does not matter, that is not true. I spoke to a lady at the University of South Carolina. She said, Tom, tell your folks back in Hilliard that senior year is not a recreational activity. Senior year does count. When we send the transcripts, they will also have a list of the classes that kids are taking their senior year. I would be active in school activities, out of school activities, hopefully going into senior year, taking on some leadership roles. Their essay is very important. This is where the people that read these applications can actually get a better idea and a better vision of who the student is. There's going to be a COVID question that students have an option to actually answer. I advise our students that they ought to do it and talk about during this time, what did they learn about themselves, one that made them happy? What did they find about themselves in terms of were they passionate about? What did they enjoy doing? And what did they find out about themselves? Demonstrated interest is very important too. So colleges like Case Western, demonstrated interest is very important. If a student never visits campus, you will not get into Case Western. They keep track of any time that a student has been on campus, that they've talked to them at a college fair, they've spoken to them on a high school visit, or even on some type of virtual tour. They keep track of that. And many of the more selective colleges out there, demonstrated interest is part of this as well. So if you would like to contact me, feel free to send me an email at tom_woodford@hboe.org. If you follow me on Twitter at Woodford_Tom, I'm always putting things out every day that have to do with college, ACT, SAT, scholarships, and things like that. So I hope that this was helpful. I would love to schedule a time to meet with you, and we will get your juniors set. So have a great night.